You closed the deal on Monday at 2:17 p.m. in a conference room that smelled like new carpet and expensive uncertainty. The purchase price was $18 million, structured as cash at close plus a performance earnout your attorney called achievable with discipline. Everyone shook hands, signed folders, took photos, and repeated the same sentence with different smiles. You did it. By Monday night, congratulations text messages arrived faster than you could answer them, each one translating your life into a number. You drove home with your phone on silent, parked in your driveway, and sat there for 11 minutes watching dashboard lights fade. Tuesday morning, your bank app showed the first post-close transfer, and your chest did not feel like celebration. It felt like disorientation with good branding. You built that company over 9 years, industrial maintenance contracts, emergency response crews, and a reputation for showing up at 2 a.m. when others stalled. At peak, you had 63 employees, 27 vehicles, and 3 supervisors who could read client risk before the email arrived. The acquirer was larger, better capitalized, and very clear about integration efficiency from the first diligence meeting. You told yourself scale would protect your team, protect clients, and protect what you had spent years assembling from very little. On paper, it all made sense. Monday's closing binder was thick enough to look permanent, but permanence in deals usually lasts until first operating memo. At 9:08 a.m., Tuesday, you got that memo. Subject line, Phase 1 alignment actions, and you understood the tone immediately. Inside were bullets with corporate language and real consequences, role redundancies, territory overlaps, and immediate cost harmonization. By 10:30 a.m., you knew 8 people would lose their positions within 14 days unless you changed the sequence. These were not abstract roles. They were people who had worked Saturdays with you, carried low-margin clients through bad quarters, and skipped vacations when trucks failed. At lunch, you met the integration lead, a smart operator with no patience for nostalgia disguised as strategy. She was not cruel. She was measured, direct, and paid to deliver synergies on a clock that started the minute your wire cleared. You asked for a slower transition on field operations and customer support to protect service stability. She asked where the margin offset would come from this quarter, not this year. You did not have a clean answer by that afternoon. Tuesday evening, you opened your old operating dashboard from before the sale and stared at the tabs you no longer controlled. Pipeline visibility, staffing bands, retention notes, all still there, now historical, now technically someone else's system. You realized ownership does not end emotionally on signing day, it ends operationally the first time you cannot choose. Wednesday morning, the buyer's HR partner sent draft communication scripts for impacted staff. They were polite, legally sound, and completely incompatible with how you had led people for nearly a decade. You edited every line. You removed phrases that sounded efficient but evasive. You added direct language, severance specifics, and real transition support contacts with names, not generic inboxes. At 11:05 a.m., one of your longest-serving managers called and asked, "Should I be worried? You had promised transparency for years." Now every truthful answer came with legal boundaries and a new chain of command that did not include your instincts. That was the first moment regret moved from background noise to front-row reality. Not because money was bad, because influence had changed faster than responsibility felt. You spent Wednesday afternoon negotiating 3 things that sounded small and were not: timeline, severance floor, and client handoff sequencing. Timeline mattered because abrupt changes break trust before replacement systems, staffing plans, and customer communication routines are ready. Severance floor mattered because market standard can mean anything when legal drafts optimize for precedent over people. Handoff sequencing mattered because one bad week of response times can destroy retention that took years to earn. By 6:20 p.m., you secured modest wins, not miracles. 2 roles preserved temporarily, improved severance terms for affected staff, a phased client transition window tied to service continuity metrics instead of calendar convenience. You should have felt relieved. Instead, you felt the specific weight of getting partial control in a structure where final authority had already moved. That night, someone posted your deal headline on LinkedIn with fire emojis and founder goals in the comments. You turned off notifications. Thursday started with employee meetings in small rooms, careful eye contact, and very little room for vague language. You sat in 3 of them, listened more than you spoke, and answered every question you were allowed to answer. One technician said, "I thought we were selling to grow, not shrink." That sentence followed you for weeks. After the meetings, you met with client success and rebuilt the communication plan from scratch. No vague business as usual claims, no hollow optimism. Just exact service contacts, escalation paths, and response commitments with timestamps and names. If clients sensed chaos, they would test alternatives before your new org chart settled. Friday, 3 major accounts requested reassurance calls. Not on pricing, on continuity. That is how trust actually behaves under acquisition stress. It asks who will answer at 2 a.m., not who owns the logo. You joined every call and translated integration strategy into operational certainty without overpromising what you no longer controlled. By end of week 1, account risk was stable, but your internal weather was not. You had sold for $18 million and spent the first 5 days triaging consequences you could partially shape and could not fully stop. The regret was not "I should never have sold." The regret was "I priced upside and underestimated transition power." Over the next month, you shifted from reaction to design, building structure where emotion had been making decisions. You proposed a transitional operating council with weekly decision gates on staffing, SLA health, and customer churn triggers. You tied earnout probability to quality metrics, not only headline EBITDA, so cost cuts that damaged service had visible financial consequence. Finance pushed back first, then relented when you modeled churn sensitivity against acquisition multiple assumptions and renewal cycle timing. Data speaks where emotion stalls. You also created a retention package for key middle managers who were carrying the emotional load of both old loyalty and new structure. Retention bonuses alone were not enough. You added role clarity, authority boundaries, and 6-month development plans so stay had a professional future, not just a payout. By month 2, attrition slowed. Client ticket resolution times normalized. Integration meetings got less theatrical and more useful. The business was still changing, but not free-falling. People outside your world still referenced the deal as an uncomplicated win. You stopped correcting them. Some truths are too long for small talk. At home, your partner asked one night, "Do you regret selling, or do you regret how selling actually works?" That question took longer to answer than the deal itself. Eventually, you said both and neither. You did not regret liquidity. You did not regret risk diversification. You did regret entering close with an emotional model that assumed control decayed slowly. In reality, control decays at signature speed unless transition terms protect operating intent with teeth. Year-end, the numbers looked fine. Your net position was materially better, and your earnout path was still alive under the revised integration controls. Several team members had landed stronger roles than expected after a difficult quarter. But your private scorecard changed permanently. When founders ask you now whether they should sell, you do not answer with valuation multiples first. You ask transition questions. Who controls staffing decisions in first 90 days, and what constraints are written, not implied? Which service metrics gate integration phases, and what happens if they deteriorate? How are client relationships transferred without treating trust like a line item? What protection exists for the people who created the performance you just monetized? And most importantly, what exactly can you still decide on Wednesday after Monday closes? If the answer is very little, price that reality honestly before you sign. You sold for $18 million and regretted it by Wednesday. Not because success was fake, because success without transition power can feel like watching your own house remodeled while standing outside the door. The wire clears fast, meaning catches up slower, and if you are not careful, the first week after closing teaches lessons your diligence deck never contained.